So the Heterogeneous Initiative is a push to move to more heterogeneous classes. So what that means is that rather than having honors classes and A-level classes, all students will be in the same room together, and then in our version, as we're proposing it, the students will choose whether they want to take the class for honors or A.
There's a study group of parents and students and teachers at the high school and that are looking at all of the, looking at different research around the issue, talking to different teachers about their experiences with it, and some of their doubts, hesitations, good experiences with it. We talked to educators from surrounding towns, from their different experiences with heterogeneous grouping. And the goal is just to kind of understand all the benefits of heterogeneous grouping and to try to figure out, what's the best way to do this at Arlington.
So the process that we've gone through started back last spring when teachers who had been participating in heterogeneous classes as part of the changes that we made last year made the proposal that we continue heterogeneous classes going forward. So there was a lot of conversation about that, a lot of opinions, but we realized that we really needed to step back and take a deeper dive. So we wanted to create a representative group that could really confer and deliberate, look at the research, look at our data, look at our practices, our expertise, look at other districts. And so we've been going through that process. And right now we're just converging on what we have as a consensus proposal. And that consensus proposal is to pilot heterogeneous grouping in 9th grade English and only in 9th grade English.
So I think the benefits of heterogeneous grouping is allows everybody to learn together. So one of the main aspects of what we learned from the study committee or when we were meeting with teachers of different departments was they talked about how students learn. They learn through discourse. So it just stands to reason the more diverse the student body, the more opportunities for students to learn from each other. So that's what I think, that's the biggest advantage of the Heterogeneous Learning Committee.
Another benefit of having heterogeneous classrooms is that it promotes a growth mindset for teachers and for students. A growth mindset says that we believe that all students can learn and that when we're learning, it's okay to make mistakes and try again, and that's a part of the learning process. It also states that there are not people who are simply smart or not smart. Intelligence isn't innate. The more we practice at something and the more feedback we get, the better we get. And students will achieve more if they have a growth mindset. And students who have teachers that have a growth mindset about them also achieve more. So when we create heterogeneous groups, we're sending the message that we believe all students can learn to the highest levels. When we track classes, which is another word for creating levels in classes, we're sending the opposite message. We're saying that some students are not as smart as other students. And that's a fixed mindset approach. And by giving students a fixed mindset about their abilities, this can actually stick with them throughout their whole lives and affect how they see themselves as learners. And we don't want to give them the message that they're not as capable as their peers.
I teach heterogeneous 12th grade English, and 12th grade English has always been heterogeneous, for at least 10 years or so. And you don't really know who is taking A or H unless students want to tell each other, which I never hear them talking about. No one really knows. So it's really just everyone's there learning together, and people really are not concerned with what level you're taking, which is really nice. Over the years, my classes they've just become more and more similar because I'll create something for my A-level class, and then I think, wait, a lot of students in my honors class could benefit from that too, so I'll give it to that class. And then I'll create something that's more of a stretch for my honors class, and then I realized there are so many students in my A-level class who would appreciate this too. So I think for me, just this is the natural next step. I'm already teaching these classes so similarly, and the differentiation comes down to individual check-ins, providing plenty of resources that are available to everyone.
On a personal basis, I come from a country where everybody went to school together. There wasn't any grouping in terms of you had a certain number of students who were following a different curriculum than other students. Everybody learned from each other. It didn't matter what you individually got from the class, but you at least participated in class together. So I believe the same should be true for students over here. We know for a fact that students receive a lot of unequal instruction in terms of depending on your race or your social status. With a lot of focus, we've now realized about the need for equity. And I think this is a great way to promote equity, allow everybody an opportunity to avail themselves of higher levels of instruction, and also allow people to learn from each other. It removes the stratification, segregation you would have in terms of race or social class, but it also reduces the stress levels. It allows students to learn from each other, builds peer support, and it builds like a student sort of a sense of community, right? Everybody's supporting each other, learning from each other.
So one of the questions is, why would we move forward on heterogeneous grouping? And I think you have to rethink that. In general, it is our value and expectation that as long as we are able to, we're going to have students in an inclusive environment where we're not segregating them into different groups. So there have been arguments for why we have leveled, but if we're able to deliver the same quality of education, the same challenge, and the same level of support to students all in the same class, then we ought to be doing that.
We know that leveled classes like we have now is contributing to racial inequality and other forms of inequality. And so being able to have heterogeneous classes will allow for more racially diverse classrooms, socioeconomically diverse classrooms, and neurodiverse classrooms, like students who learn differently. And I think that just benefits everyone.
For example, African American students at Arlington High School engage in honors coursework slightly less than half as frequently as students in all of the racial categories. So some of this is about expanding opportunities for students who are, for whatever reason, not accessing those opportunities when the classes are split. And it's also about making sure that the students who are traditionally in honors classes are actually getting an honors level experience. Because right now, all we know is that they're in an honors level class. And what a heterogeneous class really forces upon a teacher is to have to be very thoughtful and say, wait a minute, what is more challenging and demanding work going to look like in this class? As opposed to just saying, well, it's honors, so congratulations. So the idea, implemented effectively, is that heterogeneity, really benefits all students and moves the point of discussion away from labeling students and more towards labeling the kind of learning, which is what we want to do. I think these conversations are important, and you know your community better than I do, but I've studied this in other schools many, many times, and really it benefits so many students when executed well, and even when it's been executed less than ideally, it hasn't really harmed students who are traditionally high performing.
And the point of school as a whole, it should be to learn. It should be to make mistakes and take time to focus with people who have all sorts of different experiences to overcome those mistakes, and to learn not only that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but to learn how to communicate with other people and how to effectively learn and work in different environments, and to set people up to be fully formed individuals in real life.
For me personally, and from what I've seen, is that kind of like the idea of honors, just the word itself, is a really positive, like rewarding word. Like it makes you sound like you're really accomplished, something like that, like when you have a lot of honors. And then A-level is like kind of like separating students, making them feel like they're branched down from honors, when that really shouldn't be the case. It's to the point where people feel, I see students feeling like they're better than A-level students because of the class level that they take, because they're just taking something called honors classes.
I think there's this perception that the classes are really different and the experience in each class is really different, and that's just really not been my experience, and I think bringing everyone together will really support everyone.
When we go into this heterogeneous grouping initiative, if we go into with negative mindsets expecting failure, it's not going to be as effective as we really hope, and it's going to overall just make you have a bad experience and everyone around you have a bad experience. And even if you don't support it, I mean, going into it is going to make it even worse than you might have thought it was. So if we can just all be positive about this, if we can all just be more open-minded, if we can all be more empathetic and understanding of this initiative, I think it can really work really well and that everyone will have a great experience.
Okay, so the proposal is not finalized right yet. So what I'm giving you right now is a rough overview, but the decision was made that in order to really make sure we did this well and gave it adequate support, we would focus on ninth grade English. The ninth grade English curriculum both lends itself to heterogeneous grouping. For the last 5-6 years, the English department has been working to align curriculum at the A level and the honors level. All those students are being taught to the same standard, and so the real differences had to do in the complexity of the tasks, the different texts that they might use for supplementary texts or for independent reading, but the core reading has been the same. Many of the exams and finals have been the same. Most of the projects have been the same. And so the idea that we would figure out how to support students in one setting and do that together is not something unfamiliar. The English department is pretty strongly in favor of this. They'd actually rather do it in more levels, but we're asking them to go slow. And then one of the other questions has to do with training. So we're going to make sure that there's training on universal design or differentiation. We're going to make sure that we sit down and think of our rubrics for all of the standards, reading, speaking, writing, and communication. I think that's not quite right, but that's the standards. We're going to think about outcomes that we want. We're going to do measures to get baselines this spring. And then we'll follow up those again next year to make decisions about what we want to do going forward. And I'll talk about that in a second. The teachers are looking to do a retreat this spring to plan summer work. Then over the summer, they would work with support and consultants if necessary to make the plans. And then we'll make sure that the teams have common planning time in the fall. And one of the things we're planning to do to increase the level of support that the teachers get is that we're going to actually make sure that they're teaching teams of 3 teachers each period, and that those teachers have a common planning time. And in addition, we will have 4 of those teams, which will include a co-teaching section, where a special educator works with the team to provide support to students who are assigned to that section. And so we feel like we're really able to meet the needs of all the students in that environment, and we're really ready to move forward on that. At the same time, the science department is really committed to moving forward, and so they are going to be working on aligning their own curriculum and practices in the way that they have been also doing for a number of years, but the way I discussed in the English department, so that if and when we feel that it's appropriate, they're able to move forward with heterogeneous grouping in the future.